Welcome to the Growth Minded Accountant podcast, where our experts will share best practices on running your firm in the digital age. This podcast is brought to you by CountingWorks Pro. Let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Minded Accountant podcast. My name is Lee Reams. I am the founder and CEO of CountingWorks and our sister company, taxbuzz.com. So first of all, I wanted to start, Rebekah is with me again, our Chief Visibility Officer with CountingWorks Pro. Rebekah, if you could say hello.
Yeah, hi everybody. Super excited about all the growth we've seen lately. This is so fun.
Yeah, I assume you're still glowing because of the Indiana win.
I am.
Obviously, it's a big deal when you've never won and then all of a sudden you break
It
through,
is.
but
We don't know how to handle it.
apparently not. And then what you've done is now brought this huge ice age upon America afterwards. So that's how dramatic this is, or traumatic, I
It's true.
guess. But
All us.
all right. So today's podcast, I'm going to pivot a little bit to an area that I'm seeing and hearing a little bit more in our own client base. And it is not necessarily the rush and obviously the let's sell advisory, let's sell more advisory. But I think it's the kind of the misconception of how you actually do it. So, meaning obviously your client database is your biggest asset. That is where you should be targeting your efforts. But I think what I see a lot of times right now is tax and accounting pros just shoving advisory down or more reactionary. And selling advisory is different. It's relationship marketing. It is, I already have trust, hopefully, with an audience, or they trust the content that I've been creating that's getting picked up in Google. It's going through my social media posts. It's on my email newsletter. It's getting picked up in ChatGPT. And by the time they're ready to actually reach out and talk to you, they probably are quite a ways along in the process of, oh, maybe advisory is right for me. So what I feel right now is specifically now with advisory being the big thing, most tax and accounting firms are still chasing growth, what I consider in the hardest ways possible, or they're not fully energizing and getting as much out of their existing client base. So it's not necessarily I need more leads. It's not necessarily I need more traffic, more strangers to talk to and to convince, right? And I think that's an ironic thing is that while firms are pouring energy into finding new clients, the most profitable growth opportunity they have is sitting right in front of themselves in their own database, their current clients. Clients who already trust them, already pay them, right? Already open their emails. So I think that's a big deal. So when firms say they want to do more advisory, they almost never start here. They never come up with like a formula and a game plan. And that's where we're going to talk about a couple things. So today's topic is your best advisory revenue is already on your client list. We're going to talk about one of the main things that I see the most often is I just send out, I want to sell advisory. So either I only wait till I talk to a client who there's an opportunity during an interview to kind of try to upsell them, which is again, kind of just hitting them basically right over the head. Hey, you're there for a compliance call and all of a sudden now will you spend $2,000 a month with me, right? For CFO advisory, right? So that's kind of one approach that happens. Or the other thing that I'm seeing is sending out 2,000 proposals to your entire database, cold, right? Saying, hey, sign up for my, here's, give me $500, give me $1,000 and sign up without any precondition, without any storytelling, without any narrative, without any positioning, or even being relatable, or even kind of showing them what some of their financial outcomes could be. So I think that is a big deal. And I think it matters a lot that tax and accounting firms kind of step back and say, okay, advisory works best when it grows out of existing relationships. Okay, so that's what today's episode is all about. We're going to talk about it economically, emotionally, and more importantly, operationally. So as if you're familiar with the Growth Minded Accountant, I usually try to break these up into different segments. We usually go 20 minutes to 40, 50 if it gets long. We're trying to do this one maybe 20, 25. But my first segment here is why current clients are your unfair advantage. And I'll just back this up with real data. This is kind of obvious, and I'll get you to jump in here, Rebekah. And I'll go ahead and read some stuff I have here. So Bain & Company says existing clients are 3 to 5 times more likely to buy additional services than new prospects. Surprise, surprise to no one, at least to me, right? Harvard Business Review has consistently shown that trust, not price, is the biggest driver of expansion in professional service firms. And why this matters, because your current clients already have context, history, and confidence in your competence, right? So you're not trying to sell them things through marketing copy or business development people. So which means when advisory conversations, they don't start at zero. So let's talk about this, Rebekah, the importance of kind of preconditioning and understanding, okay, I already have these tight relationships. They already trust me. Some of them, you're the most trusted advisor for a reason. But how does that preconditioning make it so much easier that when you properly deliver the opportunity and the value, they're more likely to convert than just a cold pound you over the head? Here's a proposal, sign up kind of approach.
Right, because there's several reasons for it, but I think, cold calling in any situation or cold selling rarely works the way that people want it to, right? People don't want to buy a product or spend a lot of money on a service when it's just being thrust at them and they have no idea what it is. They have no idea why they should buy it. So preconditioning is key because it's basically warming people up to the idea that, like, hey, maybe there's more out there for me. Maybe this person who I already trust, who I already know delivers on their promises in other ways, on my tax return, on my bookkeeping, whatever it may be. If you're already delivering for them in that way, then you're likely to deliver for them in other ways. So if you kind of start oiling the machine and letting people know, hey, we're offering this. This is an option. Here are some possible outcomes. Have some social proof going out. Just really set the stage for what you're going to offer them before trying any kind of actual sales pitch or product offering. You don't want to hit people over the head. And I think this is not true just for accounting. This is true for every industry. This is just the way people are. This is sales psychology, right? This isn't specific to this field. So I think about how you would want to be approached in any other facet of your life. That's how your clients are going to feel as well.
Yeah, I mean, if the average buyer needs 7 contacts with your brand before they decide to purchase, and then you just go and hit them over the head on a new product and expect a one-call close, I think that's a huge disconnect. And maybe it's just people in the tax accounting space, we're not necessarily salespeople, right? We're not necessarily marketing experts, and we kind of miss this kind of preconditioning thing. So I think I want to start back before we get into the full deal. What is the difference between compliance and advisory, right? Compliance is a much different, I think, animal to sell than advisory is. So compliance is backward looking, right? It asks, what happened last year? What do we need to report? What forms are required? It's historical, it's transactional, and increasingly it's automatable. That's a difference, right? Advisory is forward looking. So advisory asks, what decisions are you about to make? What happens if nothing changes? And this is really important that you think about this because you want to create your narrative, your messaging, your positioning about this. So what does success look like a year from now? So compliance tells clients, what was. It's too late usually to do anything to correct it. Advisory helps clients decide what should be. And that, I think, changes everything, including how you market it and how you sell it. So this is why most fail. Most firms make the mistake. They try to sell advisory the same way they sell compliance. They send a proposal, or here's my client database of 1,500. I'm going to send 1,500 proposals for a service that I've never, ever mentioned to my client base, right? They may list deliverables and they blast it everywhere. But advisory, doesn't necessarily fail because the price is too high. It fails because clients don't necessarily understand the problem or their problem, okay? And I had mentioned this earlier about preconditions. So I know we like to give stats. It helps kind of back the social proof. But according to Harvard Business Review, buyers are already 67% of the way through their decision-making process before they ever speak to a provider. So if your proposal shows up without any education, I think the problem here, the reason it fails, it's premature, even to clients who trust you. So you can't sell insights to someone who hasn't been taught how to see the risk. And advisory has to be framed before it's sold. So I like to use the foam the runway principle. And Rebekah, get ready. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions here. And this is what I mean when I say relationship marketing comes in. So in a relationship-based business, you never lead with the sale. All right. You lead with the understanding. Education foams the runway. McKinsey came out and has shown that B2B buyers who receive consistent educational content are more than twice as likely to choose a provider who educated them, even when the provider charges more. So what do we mean by educational material. So if I'm selling advisory, for example, I want a tax prep client to go to tax advisory, or I want an hourly bookkeeping client to go to CFO advisory, or I have clients that I want to now introduce capital advisory. Should you get a loan? What are the different loan types? And again, normally this is historical. They come to you after they've already signed the line of credit, right? Um, and that's the problem because you're not providing that foaming the runway. You're not kind of giving the ideas of, is this right for me? Does this speak to me? And how do you do that, Rebekah? Through blog content, social media, emails, everything you say inside of your marketing universe, your funnel, so to speak, starts foaming the runway. So talk about it and why it takes so long, consistency, and how this builds trust over time.
So all of those things you just mentioned, Lee, are very, very important here. Blog posts are important for multiple reasons. They're important for AI search. They're important for building content clusters. They're important for building authority on the wider internet. Social media posts for the same reason, right? Those are going to go out into the world. They're going to start establishing you as an expert within this area, as a thought leader within this area, which is really important. You want people to think of you when they think of a topic. So if you're trying to do advisory, and let's just say you're trying to do advisory for small business owners who are looking for lines of credit or loans or other ways to grow their business financing needs, you want to set yourself up as an expert in the business finance area within your part of the country or within your region. Another great way to do it, we've already talked about, tapping into that current client base. That's where upsell campaigns and email campaigns can really be critically important. You want to show up in the inboxes of people who already trust you, but it doesn't always have to be a sales pitch. You can do very educational based campaigns that maybe answer one common question a week. For a period of 4 to 6 weeks about how business financing works. What are the different options? Hone in on a different option every week to let people know what's out there for them. That's just one example. There are obviously a nearly unlimited amount of examples you could use here with different niches, different industries, but that's how you really start getting in people's heads in the best possible way. You become the authority in the area where you want to lead. And all of those different things you're putting out there on the internet, blogs, social media posts, emails, TikToks, Reels, anything you're posting, YouTube videos, all of that is going to come together and tell the internet, tell the algorithms, as well as the people viewing the content, what you're good at, how much authority you have, and you're going to start worming your way into their minds when they think about these topics. So they're going to be more likely to trust you because you've already proven that you provide them with information that is valuable before they've ever even gotten on the phone with you or sat down at a table.
Yeah, and I mean, you just nailed it. Education actually allows the client to self-select. And it could be a life event that just occurred, and they just got that article in the newsletter about credit card stacking, for example. I'm like, I don't even know what credit card stacking exists or what it was, but this now makes advisory. It doesn't feel like an upsell. It starts feeling like you're helping them. Okay, and you're getting them to a better financial outcome, and that's where the true ROI, and that's where this kind of flywheel starts. So. And why you go after current clients. I think it's kind of obvious, right? Your current clients already ask you questions. Hopefully they hesitate before decisions. Hopefully they're actually asking you, right? They worry about consequences. They feel uncertainty, but don't always know how to name it, right? So education gives language to what they're already feeling. And once that happens, advisory becomes the next natural next step, not necessarily a sales conversation. And no one wants a sales conversation. So let's talk a little bit about, like some life events, client moments, things like that. So, how do you think of this? Advisory isn't just one service, okay? It's a portfolio of responses to different client moments. So that could be tax changes. It could be life events, buying a company, selling a company. It could be business growth. We're growing at 50%. That creates its whole new set of, and that could lead to capital advisory, right? They might have cash flow stress. They might be dealing with tariffs, right? They might be confused about AI and how it's going to affect their business. So each moment becomes an opportunity for you. Education leads to a conversation, which then would lead to the advisory engagement. So, and when this happens inside your existing client database, conversion rates are going to be much higher. Pricing resistance is going to be lower. Retention, more importantly, improves. You don't want to sign people up for advisory and they churn in 2 to 3 months. And more importantly, they see the value, they see the outcomes. You're delivering on what, it's a partnership. It's, we're working together. Your referrals are going to increase. So that's how advisory becomes evergreen and it becomes a natural part of how you sell things. So you build it in, you build this kind of education marketing on autopilot. So at CountingWorks Pro, we have what we call playbooks. We have playbooks for every single advisory type that you could think of. And the way we do it is we personalize it to each firm. We personalize it even to clients at times. And we set up kind of this automated process where, on cadence, every 2 weeks, a blog article is posted. And in that blog article, we then share it on social media. Maybe every 3 weeks, then an outbound email that's more like, hey, did you know that I do such and such? And these are some of the outcomes. Maybe you share a story of another client with a success story. That is how this flywheel starts. And what you'll see, and we've had clients who we've turned it on, and they're like, oh my God, I'm selling advisory. What are they doing? They're just calling me. And they're like, by the way, you forgot we turned this playbook on. But that is the way it works. So I think one of the problems is the honest truth is most firms understand this intellectually, but they just don't execute it properly. When they sell advisory, they're again just waiting for maybe a meeting and that certain client who says, okay, they meet my criteria. Now I have some sort of upsell campaign. They're not in any way foaming the runway. So explain a little bit, Rebekah, when it comes to the psychology of trust and building trust, and more importantly, storytelling of getting people to put themselves into these articles of, I can see myself and I could see myself with that end result. Like, how does that all work when it comes to copywriting, marketing, kind of putting together the story to make it work with your client base?
I would go so far as to say narrative is the number one most important thing you can do in marketing today. Because you can have the best ad campaigns on earth, but if people can't see themselves working with you, it's all for naught. It doesn't really matter how much jargon you're throwing out there, how good of a deal you're offering, or what special offer you have. If people then come to your website or they're seeing your social posts and they can't understand what makes you valuable and why they should work with you over everyone else, there's no point. And the way you get people there is through storytelling. It's through narrative. So it is extremely important. And the way you can do this is by simply writing content that addresses the pain points that people have, or posting content that addresses the pain points that people have. Write about, for example, social proof. Write about a real situation where you assisted a client in saving X amount of dollars on their taxes because they didn't know what deductions, credits, whatever they had available to them that particular year. That's a very simplistic example, but there are a lot of ways you can go with this. And you need people who are reading your content, watching your videos, interacting with your social media posts to see themselves in the situations that you're portraying. That's why it's also very important to discuss the outcome, not just the service. Anybody can say, well, I prepare taxes, but not everybody can say, for my clients, I save X amount of dollars on taxes every year. So you need to lead oftentimes in storytelling. You need to lead with the result. You need to tell people why they should care. How is your service going to change their story? As well as what you're going to do. But it's very important to let people know how you're going to shift what's happening in their life, in their business. That's where storytelling comes in. Once people start to see, oh, wow, this could be me. I could also have this result if I choose this firm. So it's really essential. And that's kind of a very brief way of describing it so we don't run too over time today. But I think everyone needs to be working on creating a story for their firm. You need to be working on telling that story in everything you do. Fluff doesn't cut it anymore. Jargon doesn't cut it anymore. You need to be providing value and telling people exactly why they should work with you and what great outcomes you're going to provide in every piece of content that you post.
Yeah, and the difference between what we're talking about now versus the way traditional advisory is sold, right now, again, it depends on your memory. It depends on the motivation of you that day. Do I want to bring this up to this client? Or even like the one-off effort, right? So it's not really a repeatable. Systems beat willpower every time. When you have a system in place, if you picked up 2 to 3 new CFO advisory clients a month, add that up. Oh boy, 10 months, I got 30 at $2,000 a month. This is getting really lucrative, right? So that's why playbooks, automation and triggers matter. Segmenting your client base as well. and also positioning the advisory to the right audience. That is something that is really important. That's a whole separate topic that we go through. We're going to do a positioning and being relatable podcast, I think in 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And I think we'll really dig deep into that. I don't want to go into that today. So the goal here is just to understand, okay, your existing client base is where all your opportunities are. If you have segmented that client base, so meaning you're selling tax advisory to the right clients, you're selling CFO advisory to the right clients, and the messaging is to them. It's not, you're not trying to do one advisory language across the board. That's, kind of the first step. The second one is automate this process. Tell a story. Foam the runway, okay? Just don't go out and send 1,500 proposals with some hard sale that no one's ever heard about. And they're like, oh, why did I only get 2 or 3 people to sign up? Well, if you had foamed the runway, you probably would have gotten 25 or 50 of them, okay? So you have to understand that. And then, your current client base is a gold mine. You could double, triple the size of your business, right? So your best advisory revenue isn't hiding in future leads, okay? There's other ways to do that. And we obviously talk about that in the Growth Minded Accountant, but I want you to focus on your existing client base. So if you educate first, frame early, and build systems around real client moments, advisory stops being hard, okay? You don't need to sell harder. You don't need to blast and go, oh my God, it didn't work, right? You need to teach sooner. You need to educate. You need to build trust. You need to be that thought leader. And that's how growth-minded accountants build advisory practices that actually scale. So that wraps up. We're trying to, again, keep these a little shorter. I wanted to mention I'm incredibly blessed that we have gained. We're almost to 5,000. I mean, we're probably 5,000 subscribers at this point today. And the speed that the Growth Minded Accountant has been taken off here since the end of last year into this year has been great. So we're going to continue delivering this type of content. We think it's the golden age for tax and accounting firms. We do not believe knowledge-based businesses are going to be eradicated by AI. We believe these are actually tools to make you more successful than ever. And we're going to help you communicate that to your clients. We're going to help you save time on the menial tasks, onboarding clients, and we're going to continue to talk around all of those subjects in the near future. Our latest, most popular podcast is the Growth Minded Accountant we did with Adam Lean at the CFO Project. I highly recommend it. I think we're at 14,000 views now and climbing. There is some really good information if you're not even sure how to sell advisory or how to set yourself up to create systems. This is a great podcast. So go to YouTube, look for the CFO Project podcast. I highly recommend that. So again, until next week, we have a couple more great kind of needle moving things. We're going to talk about pricing in a whole new way. Again, we're going to talk about positioning and relatability. So a lot of good content coming up. So again, thank you for being a subscriber and our listener to the Growth Minded Accountant. We look forward to our growth and your growth through the coming years and looking forward to a great tax season. So good luck.